Okay, this week on Artificially Informed, we're covering 3 AI stories business leaders cannot afford to ignore. The growing alarm around Anthropic's Mythos model and what that can mean for cybersecurity and banking. The rise of AI companion apps becoming a real force in teens' lives. And Blackstone's massive bet on AI infrastructure through a $2 billion data center play. This, government, technology, all this and more on this week's edition of Artificially Informed. Hey, welcome to Artificially Informed, This Week in AI. It's April 17th, 2026, and I'm your host, Logan Edmonds.
And I'm your co-host, Patrick Herter, your network security.
Okay, well, this week, one of the things that's nice about reporting on AI, if you actually take a minute to look, there's very rarely a slow week. And I say this, I feel like I say this a lot, but this week truly did have a lot of good stuff, bad stuff, so-so stuff, but it had stuff to report on. We're going to go straight in. What was your take about this week as far as some of the stories we're going into today?
This might sound sad, but I asked my AI how my week was going to go, and it said, depends. Are you patched and emotionally stable?
I've spent a lot of this week building out stuff in Claude. So on one hand, I've never been more optimistic about the potential of AI, but then this kind of brings me back to earth. We're going to talk about today. And I will say this note, on the world of AI, what we're finding, I think you would agree with this and kind of nod if you do. The companies that are making the most money in the world of AI are rarely the ones that have just the one brilliant moment. They're the ones that are figuring out how to apply AI consistently to improve steadily and turn repeatable execution into lasting results.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's slow and steady, even in the world of AI. I would say slow and steady to fast yet steady. You can move a lot faster AI, but the steady ones, the consistent people out there who are doing stuff with AI, they seem to be the ones raking in the money hand over fist.
For sure. Traditional principles still stand timeless as of yet.
Speaking of raking money hand over fist, let's talk about our headline story in security. When AI audits your weak spots. So, Patrick, you read this. I read this. It was a great write-up from Reuters. Why are banks worried about Mythos?
Because it could expose the fact that they have giant gaping holes in how they operate.
So Anthropic's new model Mythos, we talked about this last week. They are purposely slow walking it in its release because they are really afraid of how good it is at detecting, security vulnerabilities in modern infrastructure. Why are banks specifically vulnerable to
that? Because if they go down or if they have leaks, that's outside of everybody's control, and attackers are going to put their focus there if they think they can get in. If that becomes the low-hanging fruit, that's devastating.
So money is always going to be a big thing, and financial infrastructure, I would agree, is critical infrastructure, but I actually have a different take. If you ever supported a bank or credit union, the infrastructure they run on is some of the oldest, most deprecated stuff you'll ever come across, by and large. The Swift banking protocol, for example, is one of the most insecure things I've ever seen. There's an entire insurance industry around insuring fraud against how unsecure Swift is. But it is the main way we send money back and forth to each other every single day.
It's only slightly more modern than how airlines operate.
So reading the story here, I'm going to go ahead and cut our headline for our viewers. So Anthropic's Mythos AI is raising a lot of alarms across the banking sector due to its ability to rapidly identify and exploit, keyword exploit. It does it for them, or it gives them instructions on how to exploit vulnerabilities, especially within legacy and systems that many institutions still rely on. Experts warn that its advanced coding and autonomous capabilities could uncover thousands of critical weaknesses across complex, interconnected banking infrastructures, creating a very high risk of large-scale breaches. And because these banks depend on shared vendors and similar software stacks, a single exploit could cascade across the entire financial industry, amplifying both financial and operation damage. It's like a giant Jenga. If you take one of the key parts off that all the banks rely on, the entire financial sector can collapse. And we know from even in our lifetime how fragile confidence is in the financial sector. If people feel like they can't get to their money or they can't transfer their money, they can't do whatever they want with their money in real time, what do, Patrick?
They panic.
They panic. And now I'm starting to see why the Fed chair and the Treasury Secretary were summoning bank CEOs to Washington to meet with them last week. They see where this ends up, and so I think it is absolutely fair. This is a problem the financial industry has had for decades now. Their infrastructure is long in the tooth. They're so interconnected, and there's so many different pieces. Nobody's really wanted to address it. It's a big, hard, expensive problem.
Yeah. Would you say this is compound interest working in the wrong direction?
Oh, it gives a whole new meaning to the word tech debt. So yeah, what's the solution? We don't know. We're reporting on this. We can see the problem. The solution probably is, unfortunately, going to be a multi-year, addressal. Like, infrastructure is going to have to be redesigned from scratch. And there is my personal prediction, Mythos is going to force that to happen because this is going to initially hurt banks. Yeah. I don't see a way they stop this. I think and if not Mythos, like we talked about last week, one of the other AI models will release something that's just or close as good, and we go. The attackers will get in, and the banks are going to lose millions and billions of dollars. And then over the next 5 to 10 years, they'll slowly change what they need to change to make themselves more resilient. That is my prediction. You disagree with that?
Not at all. No, I just hope trickle down economics still works in concept with attackers and their bankrolls.
I mean, the best case scenario I can hope is they treat it like credit card fraud, where they just eat some losses on the percentage of their books. I really, it's hard to grasp the financial impact of this kind of issue. Yeah. I don't have a good way to peg it yet, based on the research I've done. Like, it seems every bank all rely on a handful of platforms and a handful of infrastructures, whether they're a tiny itty bitty credit union or a big JP Morgan Chase. We're going to find out.
Yep.
Our next story is the AI in real life. And I think this one, so for our audience who don't know, Patrick, how many kids do you have again?
This many.
Patrick, and where are the age ranges of your children, if you mind me asking?
From newborn to just getting their driver's license. So,
okay, yeah. So I feel like you're very qualified to talk about social fabric and children's well-being just because of your current life experience.
Yeah.
You mentioned this story provoked something out of you. Talk about that.
Yeah, there was a time when I felt like I was on the cutting edge, highly adaptable. And now I feel like kind of the old fogey, like, what are kids doing these days? What's this going to do to society? And to think about 75% of teens using artificial intelligence as a companion scares the daylights out of me for the future.
Well, before we're going further, let's read the story and let the audience know what the heck we're talking about. So when chatbots become teen social circles. So you remember when your imaginary friend disappeared after childhood? Well, now they're not so imaginary. They got apps, subscriptions, and surprisingly strong opinions. AI companion apps are rapidly becoming a primary source of connection for teenagers. Roughly 75%, according to one study, are trying them, and many are spending time with AI, treating them as real friends. These systems are offering constant 24/7, 365 attention. They don't judge, especially since they're an AI. And they also simulate. I will never say AI has emotions because that's not how AI and large language models works. Yeah. But they simulate emotional responsiveness, which, as we know, teenagers crave in connections. This makes them super engaging, but also really easy to form habits and dependencies on.
Yes.
The risks are significant. We talked last week, Patrick, about Greece has gone and put out a pretty controversial new law trying to ban kids under 15 from even being able to use social media. This just feels like the next generation of a problem that is compounding rapidly. And like we talked about before we even got on this call, you don't even have to have an account to use these things. Gemini is just sitting open on Google. Same with ChatGPT. Go to ChatGPT's page. You don't even log in. It's just there. Start chatting with it. Does feel like, again, I would agree with you. This is one of those things where why on earth would you ever let a teenager get this? But at the same time, how are you supposed to stop them?
Right.
Yeah. We're back to the whole how do you keep teenagers from using internet?
Exactly. And you hear a lot about these big CEOs leading tech companies like Microsoft and what they did to their children. They wouldn't let their children on these on the systems that they're selling and designing because they saw the risks. But your everyday American and person across the globe, that as technology becomes more and more an integral part of your lives, it's like telling your kid you can't drive because it's dangerous. But at least even with car driving, you understand as a parent what that risk really is. AI is new to most people that are having kids. Their kids are more, well versed about it than the parents themselves. So they don't really know how to measure the risk, or they're completely unaware.
And this is a really problem because this is very formative age of socialization. And the study that the story references out of is it can weaken social skill development, increase emotional dependence. That immediate feedback loop is there. That's hard. And especially among, well, individuals who are at the most sensitive and suggestible part of their lives, right? Like from the suggestion point, this identity is still very much informed. There is some potential for positive, don't get me wrong, like especially in mental health and skill building. But right now, all these companies, they're incentivized for engagement. That was what the brain power is. They don't care about well-being. They want engagement. They are purposely, and we're back to the old question, is the internet companies designing a product that's intentionally addicting? And there's a recent big court case where several big companies were found liable for products they developed 10 years ago, social media apps being, they are intentionally designed to be addictive. AI might have a similar problem, allegedly. So
I could see that.
Yeah, I think at this point it's a problem that is global, is societal. We're gonna have to grapple with this, and we're gonna have to deal with it relatively soon. This is one of those things where it only takes a few years for the damage to really start showing up, if it's as bad as what this article seems to lead it to be.
Yep.
Okay. So our advertisement this week for Inside the Stack. Our headline: Trust nobody and save your business because of it. Patrick, like a dummy, can you explain to our audience in 4 sentences or less what is the concept of zero trust?
Zero trust is you don't give the keys away. You don't give your whole keychain away. You give one key away when that key is needed.
So zero trust embraces a principle, which is it's impossible to figure out all the wrong cases across the business. Instead, you should tighten down on, by default, nobody gets access to anything. Only give away the ability to access anything on a very much an as-needed basis. And even if you can limit it to an as-needed for a season of time basis, a lot of the times. And then from there, you can slowly open up the doors as needed to let people have the bare minimum of what they need to have to do their job. I would argue this is more imperative than ever. I'm saying we don't talk about as much as we did a few years ago. A few years ago, you couldn't throw a rock without seeing a zero trust advertisement. Would you agree with that?
Yep. Yeah, it was a big buzzword for a long time.
We don't see much about that anymore. A lot of it's moved on to the AI stuff. But I would argue in the age of AI, where we're hooking up data sets and allowing a machine with the ability to ingest terabytes of data simultaneously at any given time, the concept of zero trust has never been more important. It is the only way I see to actually realistically, with certainty, know who has access to what data inside your organization.
Yep, for sure.
It's not a one-time install, though, and that's the hard part of zero trust, and I think that's why it died as a marketing buzzword. It is a steady, practical, constantly refined process that strengthens the security of an organization without overwhelming or unduly slowing down operations. You want to start small, you want to stay consistent, and you want to make measurable improvements over time. It was the old thing. It's not the battle. It's win the war, not the battle. It's very much a strategic move for that. If you're interested in learning more about how to apply zero trust, go ahead and check out the link in the comments. We'll go ahead and set up a free cyber strategy session. We would be happy to go ahead and take you through a strategy on how you could go about even tackling zero trust in your organization. Moving on. Blackstone, everybody's PE firm that everyone wants to hate. So how much are you, so private credit, how familiar are you with the concept of private credit right now, Patrick?
You mean like having a credit card?
Okay. So if you're in the financial space, and hopefully our financial nerds will appreciate my expounding on this call, um, private credit is simply it's the new buzzword. It's been one for since the great financial crisis, a very much a growing industry. It is essentially exactly what it says. It's credit and companies that credit is being lended to that are not under scrutiny, same level of scrutiny as banks or publicly traded companies are. That it's private. It's in the name, right? And so what a lot of these firms have, some of the biggest private credit funds have done is realize they needed more liquidity. Because what they do, these credit firms, is they go and they take people's money and they invest it by biggest purchases on leverage, and then they flip money and they return as returns to their investors, right? Well, a lot of them realize from traditional institutional investors, like hedge funds and big retirement funds and all these. Actually, you can't do as retirement fund. I'll take that last one out. You can't do retirement funds yet. That might be coming. But they need more. They need more capital. They need more capital because capital is a leverage thing for them. So a lot of them, like Blackstone, went out and started offering these weird. It's kind of like a bank account, but it's not. Where you can give them their money and they'll invest your money in private credit deals, private equity, and company investments, and lending money to private companies, and all that fun stuff. And so today, the big one is Blackstone has realized, and I love the headline because it is true. You're an IT nerd. I'm an IT nerd. Building a data center is really hard. Hard to run it, hard to maintain it, hard to actually do anything about it. And it is true. Like back when I was in IT, I tried to run my own like in-house IT data closet, and all I got was a higher electric bill and a bunch of tickets that gave me a huge headache. It's the I know our editorial team is being facetious. That is 100% true statement. That was one of the main drivers of why we went to the cloud. Blackstone seems to agree. Blackstone is not wanting to build or invest in building data centers. Instead, they want to do an IPO and raise money for a pre-bought data center, REIT BXDC. It's aimed at owning and leasing high-value facilities to hyperscalers who will then build the data centers. They want to own the land that the data centers are built on as their new investment.
Isn't this kind of similar to McDonald's strategy?
It really is. I thought the same thing, and that's funny because it's like the franchisee strategy. If you have a franchise at McDonald's, it's exactly the strategy. You pay your franchisor fees, you pay a small percentage of every sale, and you pay rent to the land that you built your headquarters on to McDonald's. They own for the most part. There's probably a few exceptions out there, but for most franchises, the land underneath the McDonald's belongs to corporate McDonald's. It does seem like Blackstone's trying to go for that play. They're making the bet that the land the data center is built on is going to be around for a while. The data center is going to be around for a while. That is valuable real estate, and they're going to be able to pay their bills. That seems to be the bet.
And AI is the new Happy Meal.
Yep. Blackstone's been trying for a while in their broader strategy to dominate AI infrastructure and getting into it. And this seems to be their biggest play. Rather than be the ones that build out the infrastructure, they want to own the land that the infrastructure is built on. And they want to leverage scale and acquisition priority to secure these prime asset real estate, right? They want to go out there, buy up the swaths, get the right locations. And then, yeah, they want to resell back to institutional and retail investors and other data center aggregators. If successful, BXDC could reshape how investors tap into digital infrastructure while strengthening Blackstone's grip on one of its fastest growing asset classes. While everyone else is chasing the AI gold rush, Blackstone is busy selling the shovels and charging them rent for it.
Genius. Pure genius.
I'll be honest. If you're in the financial markets, Blackstone needed a win. They're not having a very good quarter. So this might be one of the few things they really got going for them right now. They've had some bad PR with the whole not being able to withdraw money if you have a Blackstone account. Yeah, don't have time to get into that, and we're not a financial podcast. Look it up on your own time. It's Blue Owl and Blackstone. They've got problems. Moving on to our speaking of pricing and problems. You use Claude, right?
Oh yeah,
I use Claude. Did you play with Opus 4.7 yet? That came out yesterday.
For as long as I could.
Yeah, how many prompts did you get in for you hit your token limit?
3.
AI is getting expensive. The better the large language models get, the more token usage they use, which means the less your $20 a month goes, right? Like it's very true with Claude. I upgraded my package to the max plan for the 5X specifically because I needed the Opus 4.7 to get stuff done, and it was great, but I kept hitting the limits. And apparently we're starting to see that crack a little bit. There's not unlimited budget for token. More and more AI providers are getting in specifically on trying to get lower cost per tokens out there. And we're seeing competitors, as the story says, the AI price wars just got interesting. We're seeing competitors like DeepSeek V3.2, Kimi K2.5, trying to rival top tier systems while also lowering their overall cost per token, meaning you can do more actions for the same amount of money. This is super important for a lot of businesses. I saw a post not too long ago, and I'll let you kind of comment here at this point too, where it was a company that was super proud of the fact that it had only 5 employees, but they were running an Anthropic bill of $114,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. Token usage. A lot of companies are gauging tokens usage in lieu of payroll in some cases, based on a key metric for operations.
Yeah, I went through that exercise in the last week as well, just going, okay, if you're going to make each employee more efficient, and you're also thinking or faced with needing new hires, can you balance your budget for payroll to improving efficiency across your existing workforce? Those are real decisions. Real math.
I mean, yeah, and I think it's just driving the future, which is no one's going to standardize on one model. I think that's where most enterprises are going. Harnesses are going to become the way of the future. The ability to interchange between models is going to be key. And this is going to hopefully, optimistic. I'll put my optimism hat on. This is going to drive innovation. This is going to put economic pressure on companies that develop these models to be more efficient with how much power, how much bandwidth, the inefficiency of these models, for lack of a better term, are going to be, because they have to compete against each other. And what I'm seeing a lot of organizations do is they are purposely designing their infrastructure to be able to swap out. We don't like GPT anymore. It's too expensive. It's not working that great. Cool. We don't have to rework our entire infrastructure like with the traditional SaaS model. We'll just swap in Anthropic and vice versa, right? And they can do that relatively quickly within a couple weeks sometimes.
Yep. Yeah, they do make it. They do all operate very similar in some regards, so that is not an impossible thing to do.
Yeah, I like our tagline at the end. In the end, picking AI is less about finding the one and more like building a great team. Kind of like hiring employees, except these ones never ask for coffee breaks. Kind of true. Our final story for today, and I'm going to let you comment on this. You live in Wisconsin. Go Packers, right?
Yeah.
You guys are an interesting bunch. You like to wear cheese on your head, so I definitely want to hear about your take on this. Government, oddly enough, is getting pretty spicy when it comes to AI regulation. This is one area that is not slowing down. The White House is actively trying to pressure Republican-led states like Nebraska and Tennessee to try to scale back or revise already existing AI regulation bills that are being debated, or even shifting strategy. Federal efforts are stalling in Congress, and lawmakers in these states who initially proposed broader transparency and safety measures have narrowed their bills and after direct outreach, mainly focusing on chatbots for right now.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin, it's interesting because Wisconsin itself is kind of a split state, bit purple, not completely controlled on one side of the aisle or the other. Everybody, despite the federal government wanting to weigh in on this, everybody thinks they know better. And inside of the state, even both sides each think they know better, and fighting ensues. And I don't know what's going to come out legislatively on the other end of it. It's going to be it's going to be confusing across various states.
I think we're in a weird time. So on one hand, I can see it from a business owner level, right? Like, you don't want 50 different sets of regulations you have to figure out, especially in the world of the internet. That will kill innovation and kill economic opportunity. That's true. On the other hand, there's not a whole lot that unites our country right now, and we don't all agree on. One of which is at the federal level, our government is horrendously behind, tremendously slow, and tremendously inefficient when it comes to figuring out these kind of rapidly evolving issues in real-time basis. I don't care where you're at in the political spectrum. I've yet to find a single person that will come to me and said, yes, Congress is the epitome of efficiency and speed. Say that with a straight face. Come on.
I was thinking There were YouTube doomsayers 3 years ago.
I mean, I don't. The other problem here, though, on the other hand, that's one hand, right? And so I can understand like there is a real appeal of just having one set of rules that everyone has to follow, because from a business standpoint, that really gives clear guidance on what you were doing. On the other hand, though, I'm not sure time's going to allow that. We're seeing real angst and real problems. We already talked about AI and teenagers, for example. That's one example. I mean, last week alone, this isn't in our stories, but someone tried to Molotov, Sam Altman's house from OpenAI because AI, like, it's causing these AI companies have this weird habit, and so they have these visionaries right at the top. Who is the Anthropic one? I always forget his name, but he's pretty prolific on it. Anthropic CEO. Who is that? Dario Amodi. Sorry, I think a second. Dario Amodi. They guys like this, right? These visionaries who are talking about kind of the negativity of I see mass unemployment. I see the world where no one has a job, and their job is to look forward and see the, 20 possible futures that could come out of this and try to narrow down a small section and plan around that. So they're always projecting these things out there. I don't think they intend it this way, but I don't doubt there's somebody in the marketing team at Anthropic that knows that bad news gets clicks, and so will absolutely amplify this message that sometimes comes from this top level. And a real sense of malaise around AI is starting to really manifest, I think, nationwide. Data centers. There was an article I was reading earlier today. I think it was a councilman, I want to say, don't quote me on that, but Indianapolis or in Indiana was voting for a data center who's in favor of it, and someone, shot at his house 20 times. Like that, we're seeing. And again, to be clear, we're not proponents of violence. Violence is never the answer. We understand that, but we're seeing a real sense of discontent and a real sense of friction that's tearing at kind of the basis of who we are in our communities and how we live our daily lives. I don't know, man. I don't know if we can wait 10 years to have a set of rules around how there is, those of you who are super uber duper libertarian listening to this podcast, there will be regulation around this.
Right.
It's inevitable, guys. This is like nuclear warfare. This is the digital equivalent of nuclear warfare. There was never a world where we survived, where there wasn't some kind of rules of the road when it comes to how do we handle nukes. It's the same thing with AI. Where we end up right now is the point of contention. And I see state governments feeling that heat in a way that the federal government isn't yet.
Correct. Yep. And that's going to be the way it's going to be for a couple of years.
So we might actually, I think the real risk here, and it's looking more and more like it might happen, we might have a patchwork framework of AI ruling in this country. And I think the current administration's trying everything it can in Washington to prevent that, but we'll see. Okay. Thought for this week. A lot of pro, a lot of dour. Like I said, I was having a lot of fun with AI this week. So this section of the news, a little more on the bringing it back to earth, I would say. Would you agree?
Yes, very much so. We're feeling it in the real world, the impacts of stuff going on.
And we're AI proponents. We do AI every day. I mean, this week alone, we were, you and I were doing crazy stuff with Anthropic Claude and trying to ingest new data sources and getting better visibility and automated actions. I mean, don't get me wrong. We think AI is going to be a tremendous player for good, and it's going to make so many more businesses so much better at the services and goods that they operate and sell at. I do think, however, there are some real problems that for a long time in our technology we have been putting off, and we also need to grapple with the fact that there is something now out there that is faster than us, that operates at a speed that human bureaucracy is not compatible with. And we're going to have to grapple how we control that and interface with that. That was my takeaway this week. And I think we're going to do it in the next year or two. I don't think we have much longer than that.
Yeah, there's no doubt AI will impact business, and it's just a matter of how fast you can adapt with it.
A lot of people put out the whole, I think regulation's coming, and they paint it like it's an infinite timeline away. I think it's going to have to be in the next year or two. We're going to have to see something materialize from some sort of stage. And I've seen everything from just some light regulation to, what is it? The Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez camp of let's pause all AI development until we can figure this out. Like, you can see everything in between.
That's not
I don't know where we'll end up, but I think something's going to come.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Stay safe out there. Stay savvy. And if you have trouble keeping up with this kind of stuff, we have a free newsletter. Check out the comments in this video, and you can get a weekly digest that takes less than 7 minutes to read to keep up on what's going on in the world of AI for security, government, finance, everyday life, technology, and business. Stay safe and have a great rest of your day.
Take care.